I started it recording so that you can have this after the fact also. Forgot.
Okay,
I want
yes,
to
sir.
make sure we do that.
That a new question just arose, and that is, I'm gonna let you know my other questions later as we get into the lesson. But how thirds, substitutions?
Okay.
I asked, I asked you that before the lesson start, and I was wanting to know, like, cause like for example, I was looking at bass substitution. Our bass player was talking, and he was saying if you was playing a groove like so, instead of going to that one, you can go to the three. Instead of going to the four, you can go to the six. Instead of going to the five, you can go to the seven. You see how I'm going up a third on each one?
I do.
Are you familiar with that at all, or is there some kind of principle or theory behind that?
Yeah, that there is, and that principle and theory actually goes back to early classical music. It's called figured bass. Have you heard of that term, figured bass?
No, sir.
So there are a couple ways to explain it. The way that I learned it, because I studied classical, is like it's just. Let me explain it in the universal way because that'll be a good shortcut to actually utilizing it. The reality is that any chord that you play if they're a triad, there are three basic ways of playing a triad. 1, 3, 5. You can start on the 1. You can start on the 3, 3, 5, 1, and you can start on the 5, 5, 5, 1, 3. So if you're playing like, let's just say a C, big beautiful 6/9 chord, you can play that over the 3, and it's the same meaning of the chord,
Yes, sir.
but it has less stability and it has more forward motion. So, are you familiar with 2-5-1s?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so let's just say we wanted to do a 2-5-1 in C. So D minor, G7 to C. So if you do D minor to G7, if you put that G7 over the 3 of the G, that pulls it even harder towards the 1.
And over that 3 over the 5 was a 7, right?
It was the 7. So yeah, and we're talking about absolute versus relative. So absolute, in absolute note values, it's the 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. But in relative note values, it's the 3 of the 5. That's very important to remember. This is the 5, and then this is 1, 2, 3 of the 5 because you're on a dominant. So like, it's used in every single type of music. It's more emphasized in gospel music, like, and pop music, you know. But so it's also when you do that, it points to one aspect of music as a whole, which is very important to remember, which is that a chord, we fractionate these chords into names, right? Like this is a 2 and this is a 4. But the 2 and the 4 have very similar qualities. In that, like, if you play a 2 with a minor 7, like a 2 minor 7, and you just take out the 1, you've just got a 4 triad. So like that, and gospel music taps into this a lot. You know?
So I have a question right there, Mr. Gray. Okay.
Yeah.
Is that minor?
Good question. This is minor, right?
Yes, sir.
This is major.
So how do you know which goes with which?
How do you know which is minor and which is major?
No, no. I'm saying, how do you know which? Like like for the G7, you said the 3 of the 5, right?
The G7, yeah, and then you go up to that would be the 3 of the 5.
3 of the 5. So
Hmm.
how do you know where to put those? Like when playing, like how you went from the 2 to the 4. How, is there some? What is the theory behind that? Is that some major minor or minor major? Or
So good question. So two aspects, and I'm gonna write these down because I want to just keep track of the stuff that we go over because there's a lot to go into. But there are two things that use of the third of a chord can give you. One is forward motion, and the other is ambiguity. And ambiguity actually plays a really powerful role in the sort of journey that we create when we're creating these sort of these harmonic landscapes. So like let's just say you're on the 1, and then you go to the 3 of the 1 in the bass, right? That's forward motion, right?
right?
It feels like it's got to go somewhere. It feels like it's going to go up to the 4. The reason it feels like it's going to go up to the 4 is because you went from the 1 to the 3, which is an upward motion, and now it's unstable, and it wants you to move even further in that direction. So then you can go to the 4. But then what if you go to the 2 and you play the same exact comping? So like I went to the 4 and I did this, right? But now I could do that same exact comping in the right hand, but change the bass note to the 2. Now we're dealing in ambiguity, because so when I say diatonic versus chromatic, do you know what that means?
No, sir. I heard
Okay,
it.
so diatonic is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. That's like major diatonic scale. Chromatic is using all the notes in between. 1, sharp 1, 2, sharp 2, 3, 4, sharp 5, sharp 6, sharp 7, 1. And then down, flat. That's chromatic. Chromatic is like all the notes. Diatonic is just in one singular scale.
Okay.
Okay, so this is C, just playing diatonic. I could play C sharp and it'd just be diatonic. You know, that when you're dealing in diatonic, you have your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. Okay, those are the different modes. Do you know modes if we talk about modes?
No, sir.
Okay.
I heard of Ionian, Lydian, Mixolydian,
Yeah.
Aeolian.
Mixolydian. So let's here we go. I'm gonna start to create a lesson plan for you because there's gonna be some basics, and I still don't know your end goal, but I know things that you have to fill in. And I'm gonna try to answer some of these specific questions for you about fun stuff like using thirds, because you'll be able to use that in your gospel music.
Yes, sir.
But then in terms of jazz or understanding other aspects of the language, I want to make sure that we just like things to learn. And I have videos on these too. You don't have to actually take a lesson every time that you need to learn one of these. I have a
Okay.
video on all the modes. Like, so one of the things, and that's why I call myself a coach more than a teacher, because like I'll point you in the direction of the stuff you have to learn and be like, these are the resources for you to go and learn it. But you don't have to come back to me every single time you want to learn a new thing. A lot of the time you can actually learn the stuff on your own and then come back to me and I'll fill in the gaps.
Okay, that'll be great.
So,
Yes, sir. Because I was gonna ask you before the lesson was over, if I could have something to, like some homework. In other words. to-
yeah.
for the lesson.
So this will be your homework. Study the modes and learn all your scales in all the modes.
Okay.
I have videos on both of those things. So like you'll get the fingering. That wasn't very even, but you get it. And then like, when you want it, like the Mixolydian mode. And there's so much I could explain just having to do with scales and modes, but I'm not going to do it right now because it's in a video. And
Yes,
I don't
sir.
want to waste your
I'm
time.
looking for. I wrote down a list of questions. That's what I was
Okay.
looking for,
Okay, cool.
but I can't find them.
I'm gonna check in this. Oh, I love that people are. That's cool. People are chiming in the chat. Oh, is the gain too hot on the piano? Well, let me know if it stays that way, because I actually just have the... I think this is going to be better than the alternative. But yeah, so, and just to kind of like close up on the use of thirds, as long as you've got some nice voicings in the right hand, like, think of it, this is, the ambiguity is the most fun aspect of that. Like, if you're on your 4, and then you go to the 3 of the 4, so that F turns into an A. That chord is actually the same as an A minor, but it has the minor 6 bit baked into it. So you could go like that and it sounds more major. All you have to do is change this F to an E, and now it sounds minor. But this points to something that most people don't get. It's one of the like key unlocking things to make really good music, is like understanding the similarity of this and this, and where the ear places it. Because like the reality is the ear places both the 4 and the 6, the major 4 and the minor 6, in the same category, just like it places the minor 2 and the major 4 in the same category.
So that's what I'm trying to understand. How do you know exactly what category goes with what?
So I could lay it out for you, and that's super simple. Like literally, it's just like the well, okay. So there's a very there's a deeply mathematical way to describe it, and then there's a more intuitive, overarching, like broad way to describe it. But the deeply mathematical way has to do with the circle of fifths and how things relate to each other in terms of how far away they are on the circle of fifths. Like but let's just, rather than going into that whole matrix, let's just talk about the thirds.
Greg, hold on 1 second, okay?
Yeah, sure. Okay,
so what I'm trying to understand is like how the 1 goes with the 3, the 5 goes with the 7 as a substitution.
Okay, so yeah. So let's just dig into that a tiny bit. So if you look at the 5th, this is like the grounding of the chord, right? The 1 and the 5. When you add on upper extensions, so add the next defining note in the triad. Oh, why did that? Okay, got it. Why did I just do that? Sorry. Flipped on me. Here, let me see if I can fix this.
Okay.
There we go. Okay. So you have your defining note there, the 1 and the 5, right? And then you have your 3, which is the next most important note. And then if you move to upper extensions, you have your 7. So when you have a colored in 1, you have your 3 and your 7 in there, all the colors that make that a clearly major chord. Right?
Okay.
1, 3, 5, 7.
Yes, sir.
Okay? Now, if you look at the foundation of a chord, which is the 5th, you just have your 1 and your 5. but then you put in the colors, you have the 3 and the 7, there's another foundation baked in there. That other foundation is the 3 and the 7 of the 1, which if you take out the 1 and the 5 of the 1, it's just this.
Okay.
Now, tell me what does that look like as a foundation?
3 and the 7.
It's the 3 and the 7, so it's the foundation of
Oh,
what?
A E minor.
Exactly. So that's just to say in the diatonic scale, which is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1 in a specific key, you have the 1 and the 3 are very, very similar because the 3 is contained, the defining notes of the 3 are contained within the 1. And now this is something this is like actually some pretty advanced shit. This is way beyond like normal normal jazz compings and shit that we can talk about. This is more theoretical. But I think it's like since this applies to gospel and you seem to be really like have a lot down in gospel, I think this actually could be really valuable for you.
Okay.
So this is where you can learn to be ambiguous. You have your 1, you have your 3, or your 1 over your 3. All you have to do is change it to from like the only difference now is if you take out the actual 1, the C, and then you just move it to a B and you make that the defining note, then you have a very clear minor 3. And then if you want to take it, if you want to color in that minor 3 now and take it further away from the 1, you can use an F sharp because the F sharp is not in the key of the 1. It's the F that's in the key of the 1.
Okay.
If you were to define the 1, F is in the key. And then you go to the 3, if you make it an F sharp, it's defining the 3 now because it's an upper extension of the 3. And that doesn't have to do with that middle ground ambiguous landscape. But the thing to understand is that there's all this middle ground ambiguity between the 1 and the 3 as long as you don't use any notes, as long as you only use notes that apply to both the 1 and the 3. And then you can use the same thing with the 4 and the 6. You know? You're on your 6 here, you're on your 4 here. And then the 5, right? The 5 and the 7. The half diminished 7 is exactly the same notes as the dominant 5 with the 9. So this is where your ambiguity comes in, but they're both leaning in the same direction, which is like the dominant 5 is leaning towards the 1 because of the tritone. Do you know what a tritone is?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so this is a tritone, right? So what makes up this tritone right now if I'm doing a dominant a G7 chord? Like in terms of numbers relative to the G, what are these?
A D flat.
No,
Oh, you.
this. It's a G chord, and this is the what of a G?
7.
Yeah, and I'm sorry. This is the 7, and this is the 3. So this is the 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Right? If you're on G. So remember, relative versus absolute. We're talking relative now. So relative means relative to the chord that you're on, not the key that you're in.
So when you talk about numbers, do you go 1 flat 2 2 flat 3 3 4 flat 5 5 flat 6 6 flat 7 7 1?
Yeah, that and those are absolute numbers. If you're looking at the 1, so 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 1, and then 1 flat 2 2 etc. etc. That's absolute, right?
Okay, that's absolute.
Yeah, but relative
Let me make a note.
is good. But relative, and you can have this recording too, so you can listen back to it and dig
Okay.
into the parts that you don't quite get. But relative is when you are, so this is the 1, and then if you're on the 4, the absolute value of this note would be the 6, right? Absolute, because 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Even if you're in even if you're talking about the 4 of the key. But if you're relative, then you're looking at it in relation to, that's the word relative, in relation to the 4. So 1, 2, 3. So it's the 3 of the 4 chord. And I like to think of things in relative because that's how you hear it.
Yes, sir. So why did you call that a 7? That tritone over G?
Because in G, so this is G, this is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The F is the 7 if it's relative to G.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
But it seems like the flat 7.
Oh, it is. It is. I'm sorry. It is the flat 7. That is correct. It is the flat 7 of G.
You were just calling it the 7, but it's really the flat. I mean.
Yeah. So okay. So here's another language thing. When you're in a diatonic scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. If I were to go to like the 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1 of the 2. It's implied that the 3 would be minor and that the 7 would be minor, or that the 3 would be flat and the 7 would be flat. If you're talking in a diatonic scale, in a major diatonic scale, so if we say the 3 of the 2, I'm talking about an F natural, not an F sharp. Even though that's the major 3 of a 2, the natural 3 of the 2. But if it's outside of the diatonic scale, then I will call out the accidental. If it's inside of the diatonic scale, then you don't need to name it. So this is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is the 7 of the 5. It is a flat 7, but the 7 of the 5 is always a flat 7 unless it's varied, unless you're modifying it when it's in relation to the major diatonic scale. I know it's a ton of vocabulary here, and we're probably it's like a lot of shit, and it's very academic. But I want you to listen to this lesson again and see if you can understand like those sentences, that sort of thing.
Yes, sir.
Like so for our next lesson, that when we're talking about this vocabulary, and I'm going to write down a few of these vocabulary words.
Yes, sir. And I have a few more questions too.
Yeah, let's go.
Okay, are you ready for them now?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So like for example, so I'm gonna play something like so I'm on F. I'm just playing different chords, right? But so I'm gonna go back to that F. So I'm on F major. When I go to the 4, which is B flat. Like, so my question is, sorry, that wasn't a good example of what I was trying to ask, but
Okay.
my question is, is there a such thing as turning one, like when trying to keep music going and like continuously, is there a such thing of turning one key into another, or like maybe, because I find that I get stuck a lot in my playing.
Like you wanna go, for example, you're playing an F and you wanna change it to be like to change to E flat, like.
Yes, sir. Sort of, kinda, but like even when you're playing jazz, like how you were playing giant steps. All right, you see how you did that? Okay, I'm gonna just take that E flat for example.
Move your camera down a little bit so I can see your hands.
Okay, yes, sir.
Cool.
How you did
Nice.
that 2-5-1 and E flat? So like, when you would normally do that, if I was playing another genre, and I'm just using gospel for instance,
Uh huh.
and I went to the 6 right there, like I'm trying to think
Uh-huh.
what I'm trying to ask. It's really like turning one key into another, going from one.
So like, you mean like when I'm like, like smoothly? You mean?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Like
Or-
that. Yes, sir.
All that's happening in giant steps.
Like so what were you doing right there to go from one
I see what you mean. Okay, so
and make it
yeah,
flow? You know what I mean?
I understand the question. So they're yeah, and there are two aspects. So let me write down the question and so I can collect my answer and make it super clear. So the question is, how do you make key changes flow between each other? Flow smoothly between
And
each other.
is that a perspective even? That's
Giant steps. So, no, there are two actually very specific things that make it. Actually, no, there's three. Let me just write these down. So one is throughput notes, like notes that are the same between, or I'll say common notes, notes that are the same between each of the keys. The other is clear, like clearly leading up to the new key with vocabulary and strong notes. And then, yeah. And the third is melody as it relates to the original key. Okay, so let's go through each of these three things. Firstly, let's talk about common notes. So we're in B flat and we want to go to G. Let's just use the giant steps equation, right? So the B is and G is right?
right.
Now, in those two keys, are there any notes that are consistent, that are the same in B and G?
F sharp.
Correct. And?
And E.
That's also correct. And there's one more.
B.
Correct. Okay? So, if you were to play something in B, in the key of B, that works in B. If you were to play it in G, same exact notes, same exact motif works. So you could go there, and you could go there.
Could you say that one more time? If you were
So-
to play something in
If you were to play any of these three notes in B, you wouldn't normally have the 4 in there because it's a pulling note, but that's fine for lesson purposes. So 1 or the 4 or the 5 of B. So now when you go to G, those three notes still work.
right.
So that's why, like, when I've done solos in giant steps where I try to stay within the same like 2 or 3 note range. You could go like, you have to change eventually when you get to E because it's too far away. But like,
Right.
let's just now go to the micro of B. you can hold on to that F sharp throughout that entire change from B to G, and it still works in the in each of those two different keys.
Hey, Greg, hold on 1 second, okay?
Yeah, sure. By the way, if anybody watching online has answers to these, you're welcome to answer them.
Okay.
I love that we're getting some audience participation in the live there. It's cool.
Sorry, I have some. Thought I heard someone knocking at my door. Sorry.
No worries. No worries. So like, this is how you can transition smoothly. Is like focus. So I'm a big proponent of goal notes. It's a concept that if you look throughout, it's just a very basic musical concept described in a certain way. But if that's your goal note, like, you can circle that goal note with other notes, like a 2-5-1 in G now. And if this is your focal point, your goal note, you're going to have a smooth transition from B to G.
Okay.
Because, like, your melody is still, like, the brain hears the melody in absolute and relative terms. When I say that, absolute terms, like we discussed before, meaning the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? But now it's also hearing it as the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of G when you switch to G. But it remembers that it's the 5 of B. So if you use that one of those notes that is in both of those two scales, you're going to be able to find consistency. And a feeling of, like, sensibility in your melody.
Okay.
And the way to practice that is just very slowly find the notes that are common between any two keys, and then practice doing, like, see what it sounds like when you do, like, the 2, 5, 1 to B, right? But then see what happens when you do, like, the 2, 5, 1 to the G, but keep that as your melody. And just mess around with it, you know?
Okay, let me ask you this, Greg.
Mm-hmm.
A while back, I wrote down a lot of progressions.
Okay.
I wrote down, like, as many progressions as I can think of.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, so, for instance, hold on 1 second.
Mm-hmm.
2, 5, 1, right?
Yeah.
And then you can go 4, 5, 1.
Okay.
Flat 5, 5, 1, or
Yeah.
6, 5, 1, or so. Is that same concept? Would you just play with stuff like that to kind of put your goal notes with that because what my goal with piano is to kind of find out how to be able to do anything I want.
Mm-hmm.
You know, basically play what I hear.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but I'm finding it hard to keep things going and to kind of play fluently without, without just not being fluent as I would like to. That's why I'm trying to find out, is it substitutions I need to focus on? Is it those third substitutions, tritone substitutions, goal notes?
Well, what you just played me in those different progressions that you were doing, you were just doing a bunch of substitutions. But I think, like, so you already know a lot of that stuff intuitively because you've explored and experimented. I think it's actually what we should do with you, assuming that you can dedicate time to like starting and continuing on a certain path that's not a short path. It's a path of it's a lot of learning that will go into this, but like there's foundational elements that I think would be really good to fill you in on
Okay.
over time that will interact with what you're already doing, but it'll explain why you're hearing what you're hearing and what you're already doing.
Okay.
Like we need to go through all the modes and all the scales to start, right? Like that's, you know, the 1 and diatonic C major scale, right? If you start on the 2, you get the Mixolydian scale. If you start on the 3, you get the what is that, Phrygian scale. 4, you get the Lydian, and so on and so forth. And there's a video on that. So but like get that foundation, and then we have to do 2-5-1s, like that's like and learn drop 2 voicings, like
Yes, sir.
and then, you know, get your different aspects of like how to actually do 4-note compings, and then
sir.
in the context of that, learn substitutions, like flat 6 to 5-1 is actually a substitution for the 2 because it's
Yes,
a
sir.
tritone away. So there's a 2, there's the flat 6. So it could be like you could have the minor flat 6 or the major flat 6 or the dominant 7 flat 6. Those are all different types of substitutions for the 2, and then you go to your 5 and then your 1, and you can do that in every single key. And then you can lead up to that substitution by using something called chromatic planing, which is like flat 7 to the flat 6 to the sus5 down to the 1. Like so you're getting further from the 1 in these interesting ways, which is what you were alluding to earlier. But putting vocabulary behind it and an understanding of how it fits into general music theory, I think, is going to be the most powerful way of like giving you a foundation to play things that make sense and give you more freedom in like expanding what you're already doing.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah. That sounds like a plan. And I'll definitely be back for more lessons. Definitely.
So let's give you some homework.
Yes, sir.
So I want you to go. I have a video. In fact, if anybody watching right now knows which video this is, because I know a lot of you guys have seen a bunch of the videos. It's a video on the scales and the modes. And I think if you just search my channel for it, you should be able to find it. But I'm just going to put homework here. So actually, the first thing I want you to do is make sure you understand everything I said in this lesson. So I'll send you the video,
Okay.
and I want you, if there's a piece of vocabulary that I said, like relative versus absolute and all that, if there's anything of that nature that you still don't understand after you listen back to it, just send me a text and let me know, and I'll send you like a voice note back explaining what that vocabulary means.
Yes, sir.
So
And,
understand everything in this video.
And a lot of my questions I couldn't really. I had them wrote down. I don't know what I did with the papers that I wrote them down on,
Okay.
but I can't quite remember them how I wrote them because I really took my time out to write them.
Okay.
So if I think of any of those, can I just maybe save them for the next lesson, or
Yeah,
or maybe
absolutely.
send you
You can
maybe
say-
1 or 2 at a time?
Yeah, you can save them for the next lesson. You can also, I'm really trying to use this pitch platform if you want to like, if there's something that you feel like would be good for a video, if it's a very concrete question and you feel like there's a video answer would be good for it, you can put it on pitch and then like pitch in some like money behind it, not as much as you'd pay for a lesson, and then like maybe give it to some other people, or I'll publicize it to my fan base and see if they want to pitch in on it too, so we can get videos kind of churned out that are all like questions that have been crowdfunded. That could be a fun and you know, potentially sustainable way of just kind of micro questions in between lessons.
Okay, yes, sir.
But also you can, just hold on to any other questions you have as we go on to future lessons. But your homework, though, is understanding everything in this video, then learning all the modes and the scales. And then watch my video on tritones. Because I have like a long video on how tritones relate.
Can you send me all of those, or do I need to go find them?
Try to find them. I'm going to use the same process to try to find them because I don't remember what they're called, but they're on my channel.
There was a video, there was another video that I saw that you made about everything you need to know to be a good jazz player.
Yeah.
And you started, you went through, a whole curriculum of things.
I did. That's true.
Is that something, would that be good homework for me?
Yeah, go through that. That would be good, but that gets pretty advanced pretty quickly. I think the stuff that we will take the next 6 months for you to go through the first 5 or 10 minutes of that video.
Okay.
And that's okay. That's good. We have a lot of theory to capture, and a lot of what you're doing, a lot of what you're doing is gonna the stuff that we will learn on the basics, you'll understand how it applies to what you're already doing, and you'll have all these light bulb moments of oh man, I've been doing this forever, but I didn't know that it meant this, and then you can use it in different contexts. But the
Greg,
first thing is gonna be the modes.
Can I do one more thing before we go?
Yeah, sure.
I want to play something that I want you to hear.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll give you an example. Hold on, let me find the right sound. That's not the right one.
What software are you using?
Logic.
Nice.
Logic. So you see how I'm on the 4 right there, right?
Yeah.
Then I go to F sharp. So then I go to the flat 7 of F sharp. That's not a good sound. Hold on.
I hear you though. That's the flat 7 of C sharp, right?
That was the flat 7 of F sharp.
It sounded like you did a B. Or let's see. Let's hear it again.
So somewhere F sharp.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So I went to E. Then I went to D right there. I did something in E. Then I went to the 6. So what I'm basically
move the camera
asking,
so I can see your hands. Let me see your hands and do that again.
So basically, what I'm doing, my question is, what's your theory behind picking something out of a key and then doing it in that key as you're playing? So
picking something. Okay, go on.
So I'm on the 4. I did something in that key, which is F sharp. Then I went to E, E4. I went to the flat 7 of E. Flat 7 of E, which is D. Then I went to the 4 and D. Then the flat 7 of D. So basically, I'm just going from one chord to another, but I'm just trying to figure out, is there some kind of theory about picking a key or the note that you're going to, and then going inside that note or key? Does that make sense?
It makes sense in a few different directions. I'm not sure which of those directions you're looking for the answer in, but I can give you a brief overarching scope of what's important to consider when moving through keys like that, and what will make it musically effective.
Yes,
the biggest thing to consider is that there is a home base. So if let's say you're in C sharp, right? And then you're going to the 4, which is F sharp, right?
Right.
And then you go to the flat 7 of F sharp, like you just did, which is E, right?
Right.
remember that your home base is still C sharp.
Right.
So any note that you play, you want to be thinking of it in both in the relative term of like you're in E now, and it's E Lydian probably, which means sharp 4 with the major 7. But then like if your melody note is a G sharp, remember that's still the 5 of the C sharp.
Yes, sir.
So what that means is, and this is something that like,
You know what? Sorry to cut you off, but I think you just answered my question.
okay.
Mr. Gray, so with that being, I know we're running out of time. Let me know when we need to stop.
Maybe a minute or two left.
Okay. So like if you're on C, if you're playing C minor, you always do you kind of think like, okay, I'm gonna use minor scales over that. When I go to A flat, would you think like I can use A flat Aeolian? Do you kind of think like that sometimes?
I think of A flat Aeolian going from C when I want a harmonic shift. I like generally like you so what really advanced players think in two ways. They think in both the absolute of like C minor, and then if you go to A flat, they think also in C minor, but they also understand all the implications of the A flat. So if you want to change a color of that so that it's something that is like more pulling towards the dominant or more sounding like a substitution of the minor 2, like you could do like melodic minor, but you're still understanding that this is the 5 of the 1, but it's also the major 7 of the flat 6.
Okay.
And then this is the 7 of the 1, but it's also the minor 3 of the flat 6. And then you can keep that scale and move your bass line down to the 5. And now the relative has all changed, but the absolute is still exactly the same.
So what you're just saying, so you're thinking in two different ways. You're thinking that, for example, that B was the 7 of C, but the flat 3 of A flat. And that F was the 4 of C, but the 6 of A flat, right?
Correct.
Is that that's thinking in absolute, right?
Absolute is in relation to C. Relative is in relation to A flat. Absolute is like it's absolutely the same. It stays in the exact same place relative to your 1 that never changes. That's
Yes, sir.
absolute. Relative, it's in relation to the key that you're changing to. So in relation to the A flat. So there are two different ways of thinking of it. Absolute, this is the 5. Relative, this is the 7. If A flat is your bass and you're in C minor. And that's when you're soloing, that's like you hear it. If you really think about the nature of what this note means to the listener, you hear it in both ways. You use it like.
Do you think about like hitting any note in a particular scale you're thinking of?
I just think of the melody. I don't try to hit a specific note in the scale that I'm thinking of. I know what the implications of specific notes are. I know that like if I have A flat in the bass line, and this comes from repetition and exploring, but I know that if I play this B if I play the minor 3 of the flat 6, I know that it's going to have a really strong pull to the 1, and it's going to sound kind of out of the changes. And then I know where, like, in relation to that I can go like that's one direction I can go, and that's another direction I can go, and like it's all of these different possibilities are there. But I'm not thinking about that actively when I'm playing. That's just like, that comes from repetition and study and understanding.
Okay. Okay, yes, sir.
Cool.
Thank you so much, Mr. Greg.
Man, it's my pleasure.
This first lesson was awesome.
Thanks, man. I'm glad. So you have your homework. Go and try to find those videos.
What
If
are
you
the videos?
don't, it's
Tritones was one of them.
yeah. So understand everything in this video, learn the modes and scales, and then watch the video on the tritones.
Oh,
The video on the tritones is sort of icing on the cake. I just feel like that would apply to a lot of what you're doing, because you're asking about relativity, and tritones are like the way that musical movement lives in a vacuum.
yes, sir.
Which probably doesn't make any sense when I say it right now, but after you watch that video, I think it will.
Okay.
Cool. And the people are asking on the live that asking when we do these weekly. I don't have a set time, but if you guys are really interested in this being a weekly thing at a certain time, let me know, because I have fun doing these, and I do keep a couple students. I try to keep few, but yeah, I think this could be fun. If we get into a cadence, maybe I'll make it like a specific time that everybody knows to tune in. Yeah, cool. All right, well, Emmanuel, thank you so much. Really
Yes,
appreciate
sir,
you.
Mr. Greg.
And
you so much.
I'll
And
send you the recording, and
Alright.
and let me know if you try to find, if you can't find those other videos. I'll help you find them.
Okay, yes, sir. I'll let you know.
Cool. All right, thanks again, man. Catch you
All
later.
right, yes, sir. Talk to you later. Bye.
Oh, somebody said they're bronze plated. You said you're very interested. Okay, here, just email me. I'm just greg@gregspiro.com, or here's my email that catches more spam filters. I'll put it in here. As long as you're not, you won't be spam, so you'll get through, but I'm putting in the spam catching email here so that the spam bots that are scraping YouTube, when they find it, that their emails get caught. So yeah, just email me there. We can arrange a lesson for you. Yeah. My arms, that's funny. I know, it's a really weird angle. Cool. Well, thanks guys. This has been fun. And maybe I'll turn this back on now that it's actually really easy to go live with Zoom. Maybe I'll, thank you, Professor Bright. Appreciate you. Yeah, maybe I'll go live when I'm practicing too, because